background, Dan. Sorry if that affected how loud I was.
I can't imagine it would have, but maybe. Should I start?
Let's do a podcast. Let's do a podcast. I mean, for those listening and wondering why is Chris starting, it's been a weird. We've had a lot of technical difficulties, so
You did this exact same thing on the last podcast though, where you decided you were starting.
oh well, maybe me starting's now a thing.
But yeah, here's the thing, Chris. Last time you did it like that as well. You're like, oh, it's a bit weird. I'm starting, and you didn't do any sort of official hello. So it's not really you starting, as it is you so much, as it is so much you just sort of, sort of opening the gauge and letting the podcast just hit 100 miles an hour from the start. Like there's no, you're not welcoming people in. You're pushing them down a cliff.
Oh, would you want me to now do a hello voice?
I mean, you can give it a go, yeah. I mean, I'd rather that than what you've done, which is just sort of...
Whoa, the arrogance. Well, you can give it a go.
That's not what I meant. I mean, give it a go and let's see it.
Mine?
No, it's not a question of quality, Chris. I'm just not sure you're capable of doing anything other than, oh, I guess it's happening then. Here it is.
I'll do a hello. Right. I mean, you're keeping this in, though, yeah?
I don't have much choice now, do I?
Yeah. Hello and welcome to another episode of Stephen University. In this week's episode, we are going to review Too Short to Ride. So, Chris, as always, what did you think? Well, thank you, Dan. God, we've had a funny old one, haven't we, with lots of technical difficulties. Yeah, Chris, why are you bringing that up? It feels irrelevant. Well, just in case anything else happens, I just want the audience forewarned. Fair enough, Chris. It's been one of those days. You crazy thing, you. Oh, why don't you review the episode, Chris? Okay, Dan. So, Too Short to Ride. See, you're still there, yeah?
Sorry, yes?
Yeah. See, I legitimately worried then that, like, signal had gone or something and you'd dropped off. Right. Too Short to Ride. Was that good? I mean, I know it went a bit meta towards the end, but the original felt pretty strong. It was passable. I think your problem there was you didn't obviously remember the title of the episode, so you got to the bit where you went, welcome to Stephen all the confidence in the world. Welcome to Stephen University. This week we reviewed an episode... Chatting.
Called and then you found it.
Let me try it one more time.
Oh God!
One more time.
Are you also going to fill in my half of the conversation again? Because if you are, I could just leave you to it if you'd like.
No. It's going to be more smooth than that. Gotcha. More seamless. Gotcha. Okay. Hello and welcome to Stephen University. Chris here. This week's lecture is going to be on Too Short to Ride. And I shall take it away now by starting with my initial feedback on what the episode was about and then my thoughts. So this episode was about... Nailed that, by the way. This episode starts with Peridot and Stephen hanging out. Stephen presents her with an iPad. Presumably, I like to think that Greg brought with his billions of dollars. And then he decides that he doesn't want it. So he gives it to her and she's wowed by technology. And then Stephen shows her Tube, which is their equivalent of YouTube. And then she says what I imagine a lot of our watchers and listeners say, which is, why is this documented?
Yes.
Which you guys must feel like that all the time.
Especially if ever that's been true, it's the beginning of this episode.
Yeah, exactly. So she watches some videos and is enjoying the technology, but then Amethyst appears and they decide to go to the fun fair. At the fun fair, Peridot struggles because she's not tall enough for the rides, so she can't shapeshift herself. And then in the Hall of Mirrors, they're shapeshifting and having more fun, and she's just seeing a taller version of herself and kind of, I think, looking at it, wishing it could be her. And then there's a ring toss. Amethyst cheats on the ring toss and gets a ring over one of the bottles, but she doesn't win. Peridot doesn't win the prize she wants, which is this big alien thing. She just wins this shitty little thing that goes on your finger. She gets upset about that. They talk about shape-shifting. She reveals that she's never done it. She doesn't really have any power because she's a new era gem or second era gem or something.
I think she said era 2.
Yeah, that's it. Era 2 Peridot. So apparently resources are limited on Homeworld, which is sort of an interesting piece of information just snuck in there.
Yeah. Explains some of their tactics. Again, the show going to interesting lengths to make us aware that the bad guys aren't necessarily bad guys in the traditional sense. They're not just mustache twiddling people who want to do bad. If resources are limited on their homeworld, it makes sense they're heading out to other planets and colonizing them as they tried with Earth. So it's sort of, it makes them a little bit more understandable, even if you don't agree with their tactics and such.
Yeah. And then she just says that she wants to kind of go home and just concentrates on the iPad. It becomes this weird sort of metaphor for technology, because Amethyst is like, no, you don't need it. You know, it's not about who you think you need to be. It's about who you are. And then Amethyst goes to throw it away. Peridot yells out for it to stop, and then the iPad freezes midair. And she realizes that she has got powers. She can move stuff with her mind.
Specifically, I think they hint that it's specifically metal.
Yes. Oh, did they? I didn't get that, but okay. And then I've missed I was going to include a joke. Halfway through, not enjoying the fun fair, she finds herself searching, "Am I having fun?" Which is what I imagine a lot of our listeners feel like throughout the podcast. Second joke there. Would have been better in the context. She uses her powers to win the weird alien, and then she makes a reference to the short crew, who are the three of them, because they're short. I think it's short crew, is that what she says? And then there's 3 stars, which I thought was a really nice touch. There you go.
Yeah.
Bit ramshackle, but...
So that's everything for this week on Steven University. I thought it was good. So we'll see you next week when we... what's next week's one called?
It is another one where fundamentally... Like, I really enjoyed it. And it's weird, because they tease some stuff, and I do feel like there are some metaphors in there about technology, and being too engaged with it and having fun and seeing the real world. There's certainly a lot of Peridot stuff in there. I don't know, and stuff about her insecurities and her size and why she, uses clothing and stuff to extend herself. I kind of don't know if they do any of those things full blown. Yeah. And therefore the episode just sort of swims by. There's even like a montage. There's a few montages where they're like having fun at the fair, and one where they're trying to make her grow. And it's a lot of good stuff. It's a really strong episode. I don't know if they quite reach it with all of the deeper stuff. That's no bad thing. But I think there'd be more to analyse if it did hit a home run with some of the deeper stuff. Because otherwise it's just a good episode. What did you think?
I'm with you. It's like it didn't have lofty goals. Do you know what I mean? But it sounds to me like the writers not sat down specifically to say this, but like the essence of their goal was they sat down and said, let's make an episode that sort of says it has a sort of subtle message about technology, and also we sort of demonstrate some of Peridot's sort of frustrations with her own inadequacies, and let her face the fact that she's always saying what she can't do and not focusing on what she can. It's a great message and a really important things like that are really important to put in kids shows. I think it's really good to make sure that you're establishing these sort of ideas early with younger people. I think it really helps them when they're growing up and dealing with how messed up everything is. Insert my traditional weekly rant about Trump in here. And I think that when you've got such a simple goal, as long as you achieve that really well, that is absolutely passable and fine, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. I think that sometimes this show is a victim of its own success when they do so many amazing things that when they do something like this, which is just nice and sort of, and I don't mean to do sort of straight down the middle. I don't mean to be dismissive of the episode, but when it's just a nice simple idea like Peridot learns a lesson, they achieve that brilliantly because they do everything brilliantly on this show. Or not everything, but like most things they do very well on this show. And I think that it's sort of, you're in this weird situation then where you sort of go, well, it didn't have loftier goals, so I can't criticise it for not giving me more than that. And it did what it was trying to do perfectly. Like if you lay out that idea, Peridot learns that lesson, this is the perfect execution of that idea. So I can't really criticise this episode in any sort of tangible way. But I can say it's one of the less memorable ones. I remember it took me a few seconds to remember which episode this was when it started. And that says a lot.
I was quite surprised Peridot was back so soon. Like, I was pleased to see her,
Yes.
But I was like, oh, okay, we're back with a Paradox story. Cool. Like, and I don't know if maybe that's part of it as well. Like, it interrupts the flow of us getting back with the town people, maybe. I don't know. Like you say, it's not a criticism, but it's just like, and you know, every show has episodes. Like, it's, you know, if we didn't have to analyze it for a podcast, I'd have finished that episode and gone, cool, on to the next one.
Yeah.
The trouble with analysing stuff for a podcast is you have to have more to say. And so when you say that, it sounds like you're criticising.
Yeah. But in reality,
but
this
we're
is
not.
just perfectly fine, acceptable, enjoyable entertainment. Like nothing, it's not blowing any minds, but it's also far from bad. It's good. It's just a strong episode. I really like some of the ways they just like sort of they find a few different ways to sort of show her frustration in her inabilities, rather than just keep doing the height thing. They sort of like, even her inadequacy at the ring toss is like sort of you know, and then her inadequacy at shape shifting, like, which is obviously related to the height thing, but a completely separate thing in itself to be able to achieve. Like, it's just it's a multiple things. It's not, they don't focus on one thing she can't do. They sort of show that there's multiple things she feels frustrated with herself being unable to do. And they even start the episode with that iPad thing, you know, a reminder of the fact that she used to be able to do so much more because she was augmented with all this technology. So it's like, you
yeah.
sort of,
I hadn't.
start on that point.
I hadn't really, because I kind of got to the end of the episode a bit like, what's the iPad thing about? But I see the link a bit clearer now.
Yeah, like, so the iPad sort of was like Stephen trying to give her back a bit of what she used to be when she had all her technology on her, because, you know, she used to be tall and shoot lasers and all this cool stuff that she's lost all her equipment and can't do anymore. So yeah, and I you know, I will say for this episode as well, it is very funny. Like, my favorite is when, like, Amethyst is trying to talk to Peridot, and it, like, sort of cuts round, and you see that she's just typing the word clod over and over and over again.
That was funny, but I don't think it beats the all the Mr. Smiley stuff. I haven't seen a bed in 6 days. That was brilliant.
When
Mr.
Smiley is basically evidently running every stall at Funland.
Yeah. The stuff like, there's Onion lighting a fire. I'm not falling for that again. And then it cuts to Onion lighting a fire. I really liked when they first arrive and she's like, oh, you've taken me to a sign.
Yeah, that's funny too. Yeah, you're right. These are very good.
There's a lot of great humour in the episode.
Yeah, there is.
Much so.
Yeah. It's definitely a good one in terms of that as well.
So, to avoid us just listing funny bits, I got a question. I have said before that I felt like they were trying to zero in on Peridot and Amethyst, and maybe they were, you know, I didn't know if potentially that was going to become a love story or just a friend thing. I certainly didn't get any love story vibes from this episode. I got some kind of more friendshipy love story vibes. Was I overthinking on, you know, hot on the heels of Pearl and Rose? Was I overthinking Amethyst and Peridot? Did you ever think that? Or
it's a tricky question for me to answer without spoiling stuff, because I think however I answer it, you'll assume for the future, and I don't want you to really, because I feel like where it's gone so far, that you am I correct in saying you still feel like that option is open?
I feel like it's open, but I'm less confident. I'm less sure they're going to do it. I wasn't 100% sure they were going to do it, but I felt like they could, and I was quite excited by it. I thought that would be quite a cool story. Could you say whether you'd had that thought at this point?
I hadn't, if I'm being honest. I'd sort of seen it more as a friendship at this point. But that doesn't preclude where it goes, obviously. That's not me sort of informing it with later knowledge. So you know, it doesn't exclude the possibility of that being the case further down the line. But I don't know. I mean, it's interesting in this episode particularly because they have this whole shorty squad running joke. So because obviously they're the 3 shortest characters physically, which is nice that they put them all together and like they label themselves the shorty squad and all that. And I think that's a really interesting idea. So I mean, you could almost argue in this episode they put Peridot with Amethyst not for, you know, reasons beyond just that completes that sort of set.
Yeah, but I like she's gone to her for stuff before and had deeper conversations before, so I think there's that reason as well. I don't think that story plays out as smoothly or in the same way with Pearl or Amethyst.
Oh no, I
Pearl or
100% agree.
Garnet.
No, I 100% agree. I think if you were going to do that, that's how you do it. Did you like these subtle reference as well to Lapis?
Yeah.
When it was, I can't remember what it said. It said something about getting a roommate, and she was like, "Don't need that. Got one of them already," or something. There's some sort of like reference to. It was very subtle.
Yeah, it was subtle, but it was a nice kind of like Lapis is still there as well. We're just not dealing with her in this episode.
Yes, yeah, it's good to acknowledge that these things still exist and are out there. That's for sure.
Did you at this point have a kind of a let's see this? Were you desperate to see any certain characters again? Like I'm a little bit like we haven't had a Connie story in a while. Let's get some Connie.
Yeah, but I the thing is, you can be with a show like this where they tend to focus on a person each episode. When they do that, it's kind of hard to sort of be like, I want this person, because there's no way I can get everyone next week. Do you know what I mean? That's that sort of sad reality, is that next week it's going to be someone who will be, out there, and I just have to assume that the character I want to see the most is Jew. So there are definitely characters I'm always like, I haven't seen them in a little while, can't wait. Thankfully, I think they space it out well enough that I never feel too big of a gap. The character I feel like we haven't seen the most recently now is that I had a focus on for a little while. I guess would be Lars. And I don't know if you've seen the title of next week's episode.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, well, I'll say it at the end of the episode anyway, so you're going to find out either way. But next week's episode is called The New Lars. So, and he's the character I think we've had the biggest gap that I can think of that we haven't.
Yeah, because we did get some Connie stuff at the barn. So
yeah, we got some Connie stuff at the barn, and we got as well.
We've seen Onion, I think.
Yes, we had a bit of Onion, and then we had sour cream recently.
Yeah,
because that's when Marty came back to town. And
we had some Sadie when he first, not much Sadie, but we had a little bit of Sadie
when he was floating. Stephen floats.
When he was floating.
Yeah. So I think the person that if I was doing it in my, it might just be that I know that's what's next, so maybe that's why it's on my mind. But for me, the person if you were to ask me now, who's most Jew, it does feel like Lars. But again, that might be informed by the fact that I know the title of the next episode and have seen the next episode.
Yeah. But, you haven't already watched it, have you?
No.
You know what I mean? You haven't watched it.
No, I've not watched it recently. No. But I've already seen it historically, so I know what happens in it.
Yes. What did you have any other notes or thoughts on this one?
Well, yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the Peridot thing, because we got a comment the other day where in a previous episode I sort of talked about Peridot being a kindergartner, in that she runs the kindergartens, because that's the hints we've had from the various episodes that she's shown information. She showed a great deal of information about kindergartens when she's gone. She went there with Amethyst that time. She had a huge amount of information about that. And as we've talked about the class system and the gems having different roles, it's becoming clear that would have been hers. Somebody put a comment on, which I don't disagree with them directly, but the person basically is asserting that she's not a scientist, she's IT, basically, is what they're saying. And I'm not sure that is quite accurate. To me, she's and it's possible that I didn't even so this is the one thing. Okay, downside to the podcast, I don't know exactly what comment of mine this person is referring to. I assume it's a comment where I've sort of passively described her as somebody who runs kindergartens, because we've seen when she went with Amethyst the amount of knowledge she has about kindergartens. She went back there to check on the cluster, which clearly is a thing growing under the ground, very much like the way they cultivate gems. So I assumed, and I may have mentioned in passive, that's what. Well, this episode sort of clarifies, because it literally says, if you look at her tablet account, it's named Certified Kindergartner Stranded in Beach City, Leader of the Crystal Gems.
And when you saw that, you were like, I'm going to prove that YouTuber wrong.
No, I just the comment literally came up like,
look,
it's funny because the comment literally came up like 2 days ago from when we're recording this. So the thing is, it's going to seem like that to him him or her. I think the YouTuber's first name is Mark, so I think I'm safe to say him. when they hear it in next year, because it will literally be whenever February, March, whenever this comes out. It's going to seem like I've waited months to respond, but that's literally coincidentally like they've posted that comment and we've seen this episode that has that in it. But I could be wrong anyway. It could be referring to a different comment of mine that I don't remember properly, where I said something different. But there you go.
I got told about a comment that was like, someone was like, "What are you going to do with the nukes?" And someone had replied like, "2 a week. There's no way they're going to like, what? That would be stupid."
Yeah.
which made me laugh.
Yeah.
Because we discussed that last week. Did you do you find? Well, have you got anything else you want to talk before I make up a question on the spot, which I'm sure will be brilliant? Did you have anything you actually wanted to talk about?
Yeah, one other thing, which is something I forgot to mention from last week's episode, which is that the tap dancing in Mr. Greg, when they tap danced, the actual audio of the tap dancing is the person doing that is Lauren Zook, who actually provides the voice of Peridot.
Oh, cool.
So the actress that provides that voice happens to know how to tap dance and did the tap dancing for the sound effects for the previous episode. I thought that was a cool bit of trivia, and I forgot to mention it last week, so I thought I'd throw that out there.
Cool.
And
anything else? I've now got a question. Anything else?
Yeah, you can ask your question. I can do my little bits.
No. Do you got any trivia or anything?
Yeah, I got a few little bits for this week's one. First of all, Cartoon Network's Twitter account had several tweets sent out as Peridot when this episode launched. One of which was just like a really blurry image of like her chin, and it says, "Oops, I have transmitted an accidental photo of myself, internet. I demand you delete this incorrect log this instant."
That's amazing.
And then a message that just said, "Clods, clods, 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 ha ha ha," laughing out loud. So that was quite funny, I thought.
Although, of course, in today's society, that gag is out of date. But anyway.
Oh, the 140 characters one. Yes,
yeah.
That's true. That is true. We're in a weird, scary new world of 280 characters.
It's too many.
Oh God, you can Trump can tweet more bullshit. Brilliant. Thanks, Twitter.
Insert Trump rant here.
Why would you give him that
Carry
power? I think everyone should have got 280 characters except for Trump. That's just another 140 characters he can use to fucking start nuclear war.
Yeah.
What were they thinking? Anyway, so obviously I've double checked through the transcript, and they do clarify that it's that literally I think Stephen utters metal powers, so she has just metal moving powers.
Oh, I thought it was mind powers, so maybe I thought he said mental or something. But yeah. I'm sure it was metal.
Yes. What else? Oh yeah, obviously, clearly Stephen's previous permanent ban from Funland has been lifted, although not clear as to how or when that happened.
Well, I got the feeling it was both of them, Stephen and Amethyst.
I just realised I think I said the wrong name earlier. Yeah, sorry. When I named the voice actress for Peridot, I don't know. I think I named one of the writers or someone. Shelby Rabara. I don't know what happened. I think I must have, because I had the page open with all the details in front of me. Another name on the page must have.
Yeah.
It must have just like jumped out at me, and I think I must have said. I think I said Lauren Zook's name. No, sorry, it's Shelby Rabara. Before everyone, I'm sure you've already all written your comments and sent them. If you wrote a comment correcting me on the voice actress's name, and have now listened further and heard me correct myself, add to that message, "Thanks, Dan," as if I listened to you.
You say that, though, but didn't someone comment the other day something really aggressive to you, which presumably was relevant if you listened to the episode, but when Jess was reading out the comments, she was like, "It's a comment here, like, insulting Dan's mum," and I was like, "What?"
That's amazing. I wish you'd seen it after I replied, because my reply would have made it clearer. But basically, yeah, there's an episode where we were talking about how all of our listeners were quite civil, and I was like, I'm not used to it. I'm on the internet. I expect people to tell me they want to, they're gonna basically tell me they're gonna fuck my mum. Like that's basically what I expect from the internet. And like someone actually put that comment in the comments, and then someone commented under them going, "You better hope Dan remembers the reference." It was quite good. It was a good moment. Made me happy.
Is that all your notes? You ready for my question? It's a good one.
Well, I had one more thing I wanted to ask you about the reference. the reference to a thing that you don't like when they were doing transforming and they were shapeshifting. I want to see how you felt about that, Chris.
I legitimately saw it and then immediately tried to blank it from my mind. So I can't even really remember.
Okay, do you want me to remind you, or do you remember now?
I know it's in the montage, yeah.
So when they're shapeshifting, Amethyst turns into a full-on cat, and Steven attempts to copy that but can only make his finger a cat, and then, because he can't control it, he sticks it in the water again to make it go away.
You know what? Because it was part of a montage, it sort of it passed me by, and I didn't enrage about it. But so I apologise if people want more anger as a result of that. But I wasn't pleased.
You were so unpleased you blanked it.
Yeah, I literally saw it and went, oh, and then just like, I think because like we weren't live, do you know what I mean? There's less. I didn't like, if I'd have paused the episode and been like, it just would have. I don't entertain myself that much.
Fair enough.
To indulge.
I have a little bit of continuity that I thought was cool as well. When Steven gives Peridot the tablet, she says, "Wow, thanks," in the exact same way Steven told her to in log date 7:15:2 when he gave her the recorder.
Nice.
Which I thought was very nice. So there you go.
Cool.
I think that's everything I've got.
It's weird because we've reached an actual. I feel like my question was just when I thought we were going to have to pad it out, but now we've hit time and we've not. But do you want me to ask it anyway, Dan? I feel like I've hyped the question now.
Yeah, you've hyped the question. We need to ask the question.
When we see tertiary characters like Mr. Smiley, who haven't really had an episode, do you find yourself thinking, it's good that we've got some characters that are, for lack of a better term, the Gunther of this, or the or the background but amusing characters. So do you find yourself going, oh cool, he's fitting that role and that's great? Or do you think to yourself, this is such a wide universe where they can explore anything at any time, I hope we get a Mr. Smiley episode? Or indeed any other character that fits that brief.
It's an interesting question, because I think I find myself a bit in the middle, because I am totally content for them to have, the sort of tertiary characters that really don't get their moment, that are just there for a few yucks now and then. Mr. Smiley's a great example up to this point. I'm not going to confirm or deny if he gets an episode later on, for obvious reasons. But at the same time, equally, if they chose to widen the character and explore the character, then I'd be excited by that prospect. So I'm sort of quite happy to assume we're not getting any more until the show surprises me with it. Because I'm in a position where I'm happy enough and understand the benefit of having some characters that we don't have weighty emotional backstories to, because that allows them to just come in, be silly, and then go again. Again, Mr. Smiley is probably the best example, I think, of that at the moment.
Yeah, because like others, like Onion's dad, have been sort of partly done.
Mildly explored, which is sort of like, it's fine, but it's so. I think that I'm in a position where either way is fine, because I totally understand that you do need those characters too. But I'm also comfortable enough that if they did it, I'm sure I'd be pleasantly surprised, because they historically, when they have done that, where they've taken a character, we might not have thought they was going to get that much screen time and done a story on them, it's usually ended up quite good. So, in fact, I think there's an episode like that coming up soonish.
Cool.
For someone,
not
necessarily for Mr. Smiley, but there's another character that hasn't had a moment to shine yet that's getting an episode soon, I think.
Well, I think all that applies, except for Jamie the postman. Who gives a fuck about that dude?
Poor Jamie.
Who cares, Jamie? Stop trying to be an actor, okay? Just be the best postman you can be.
Okay.
What a prick. I'm joking. He's fine. He's cool. I don't mind Jamie.
Okay.
There we go. Awkward ending. The awkward endings are back. Dad's, I've made it awkward. I've made Jamie fans upset.
Yeah, but they can't be any more upset than the poor Ronaldo fans that always just put basically the verbal equivalent to a sad face emoji every time a Ronaldo episode comes around and we rag on him for 30 minutes.
That's how Jamie could be used, posting Ronaldo out the show. I'm joking.
That'd be
It's
amazing.
fine.
That's what we need to happen in the very final episode. In the very final episode of the show ever, some giant sort of gem war, and everyone survives except for Ronaldo and Jamie. It'd be like, the perfect ending. No, I don't see. The thing is, I think that I have no problem with Ronaldo until he gets his own episode every time. Like, he's fine he would be better as a Mr. Smiley type character where he just shows up every now and then and says something funny and then leaves. Like the conspiracy theorist not in a town full of weird shit. That's a funny idea. It's just I don't think he should ever get his full episodes. I don't think they try to make it work and they try to make us emotionally invest in him, and it's just hard to. I think that's the problem with Ronaldo.
That's fair.
Yeah. Anyway. And
Okay.
I would argue the same thing is true of Jamie. So there you go.
Yeah, I think you can definitely make that argument.
Yeah. Cool. Booyah.
Shall I do the outro?
Oh yeah, you're in charge now. That's your shit.
Yeah.
Look,
Okay, so that's
for those of you who want to
everything
know if you've got opinions on this episode, I let Chris steer. He made it very clear up front. He wanted to steer. I gave him the wheel. This is how it was. If it was good, then great. If it wasn't, then blame Chris. It's all on him.
So yeah, I'm happy with that.
Good.
I mean, I can't check the comments for spoilers, but so just direct it to Dan. That'd be easier.
And
there we go.
I will heartily pass on any ones without spoilers to Chris.
Yes, yeah. I've been Chris Billingham.
I've been Dan Dillon.
And we'll see you next week for the new Lars.
Good job remembering the title of the next episode, Chris.
Is that the name of the episode? Cool.
Yeah. Well done. I actually would high five you right now if I could. I'm gonna high five myself to create the sound as if we're high fiving.
Oh, I'll do it at the same time. You ready?
Okay, so count down to it. So it'd be 3,
yeah.
2, 1, then go on the fourth beat, if that makes sense.
Yep. But should I count down because I'm in charge?
Oh, of course. Yeah. What am I thinking? Sorry, master.
Cool. No worries. 3, 2, 1.
Brilliant.
We did not do that in time.
Sounded in time to me.
I didn't mind. Sounded time, but maybe that's because if we both got it a second late, it'll be fine.
Yeah.